The fluorescent lights of the highway rest stop flickered with the kind of tired persistence that matched Emma's own exhaustion. She'd been driving for 6 hours straight, running on gas station coffee and the desperate need to put as much distance as possible between herself and the life she was leaving behind in Boston. 28 years old, and everything she'd built had collapsed in the span of 3 months. The teaching job she'd loved, gone after budget cuts. The apartment she could no longer afford without that steady paycheck. The relationship that had dissolved the moment financial stress revealed exactly how shallow her boyfriend's commitment had been. Now she was heading to her sister's place in North Carolina, hoping to regroup, rebuild, figure out who Emma Torres was supposed to be when everything familiar had been stripped away. The rest stop was one of those anonymous places that existed on every highway in America. Harsh lighting, vending machines, restrooms that smelled of industrial cleaner, and the constant hum of travelers passing through on their way to somewhere else. Emma pulled into a parking spot near the gas pumps, her 10-year-old Honda coughing slightly as she turned off the engine. The dashboard warning light had been on for the past 100 miles, another problem she couldn't afford to fix. She sat for a moment, hands still gripping the steering wheel, trying to summon the energy to go inside. Through the windshield she could see other travelers moving through their routines, pumping gas, stretching road-weary limbs, herding children toward the restrooms. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that Emma felt like she was drowning. Get it together, she told herself firmly. Gas, bathroom coffee. You can fall apart when you get to Charlotte. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. As Emma opened her car door, a black SUV pulled up to the pump opposite hers. Not just any SUV. The kind that screamed money and power, with tinted windows and chrome detailing that probably cost more than her entire car. She noticed it the way anyone would notice something that didn't quite belong at a highway rest stop at 11 o'clock at night. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out. Emma found herself staring despite her exhaustion. He was tall, probably 6'2", with the kind of presence that made people instinctively move out of his way. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. All sharp angles and intense features. Even in jeans and a black Henley, he radiated controlled power. The watch on his wrist caught the harsh lights, expensive and understated in the way that only truly wealthy people managed. But it was his eyes that made Emma's breath catch when they briefly swept across the parking lot. Cold, assessing the gray of storm clouds. Eyes that had seen things, done things, that didn't belong in the normal world she was trying to navigate. He moved to start pumping gas, his movements efficient and controlled, and Emma forced herself to look away. Rich guy at a rest stop, probably heading to some business meeting or luxury destination. Nothing to do with her, nothing she needed to be concerned about. She was halfway to the building when she heard it. A child's voice, small and terrified, cutting through the ambient noise of the rest stop. Please don't leave me here. Please, I'll be good, I promise. Emma froze, her heart lurching. She turned toward the sound and saw a little girl standing near the passenger side of that expensive black SUV. 7, maybe 8 years old, with tangled dark hair and a face streaked with tears. She was wearing pajamas, incongruous and wrong at a highway rest stop, and her small hands were clutching the man's arm with desperate strength. The man from the SUV was trying to gently disengage her grip, his expression unreadable. I need you to stay in the vehicle, he was saying quietly, his voice low and controlled. Just for a few minutes while I... No. The little girl's voice rose to a sob. You're going to leave me. Everyone leaves me. Please don't leave me here. Every instinct Emma had developed during 5 years of teaching kicked into overdrive. A child in pajamas at a rest stop at night, terrified, begging not to be abandoned. A man who looked like he belonged in a crime thriller trying to get her back into his vehicle. This was wrong. Everything about this situation was screaming wrong. Emma's hands were already reaching for her phone, her mind cataloging details the way she'd been trained during mandatory reporting workshops. The license plate of the SUV. The man's appearance. The child's visible distress. She moved closer, her voice firm despite the fear making her pulse race. Excuse me. Is everything okay here? The man's head snapped toward her, those storm-gray eyes locking onto her face with an intensity that made her skin prickle. For a moment nobody moved. Then the little girl noticed Emma and something shifted in her expression. Hope, desperation, calculation all mixed together. Help me. The girl lunged toward Emma, breaking free from the man's loose grip. Please help me. I don't want to go with him. Emma's arms came up instinctively, catching the child as she crashed into her, small body trembling with sobs. Over the girl's head, Emma met the man's gaze directly, channeling every ounce of protective fury she possessed. I'm calling the police, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I don't know what's happening here, but this child is clearly terrified and I'm not letting you. Miss, the man interrupted, his voice still quiet but carrying an edge that made Emma's instincts scream danger. You don't understand the situation. I understand that a little girl in pajamas is begging not to go with you at a highway rest stop at night. That's all I need to understand. Emma's finger was already hovering over 911 on her phone. Take one step closer and I'm hitting dial. The child's grip on Emma's shirt tightened, her face buried against Emma's stomach. Emma could feel her trembling, could hear her muffled sobs, and everything in her screamed that this was a child in genuine distress. The man studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then surprisingly his posture relaxed slightly. Not threatening but not backing down either. My name is Dante Caruso, he said, his voice taking on a different quality, not quite gentle but something approaching it. 30 minutes ago I pulled this child out of a semi-truck at a rest stop 15 miles back. She was being transported by men who had every intention of selling her to the highest bidder. I'm trying to get her somewhere safe. The words hit Emma like a physical blow. She looked down at the little girl still clinging to her, processing what Dante had just said. Trafficking. He was claiming he'd rescued her from human traffickers. If that's true, Emma said carefully, then you should have called the police immediately. Let the proper authorities handle it. The proper authorities have proven spectacularly ineffective at stopping the operation that took her. Dante's jaw tightened, the first crack in his controlled facade. I have resources they don't. I can protect her in ways they can't. By kidnapping her yourself? By ensuring she doesn't end up dead in a ditch when whoever bought her realizes she's gone. The blunt brutality of his words made Emma's stomach turn. But she forced herself to think, to assess, to not let emotion override logic. If he was telling the truth, if this child had actually been trafficked, then she was in danger. Real, immediate, life-threatening danger. But if he was lying, if this was some elaborate cover story, then Emma was making it easier for him to take a terrified child. What's your name, sweetheart? Emma asked the girl gently, her free hand stroking the tangled dark hair. The child looked up at her, brown eyes enormous in her pale face. Mia, she whispered. My name is Mia. Mia, that's a beautiful name. I'm Emma. She kept her voice soft, non-threatening. Can you tell me what happened? How you ended up at that rest stop? Mia's eyes darted to Dante, then back to Emma. Her whole body was still trembling. The bad men took me from the parking lot at my school. They said, her voice broke. They said my mama didn't want me anymore. That nobody wanted me, so they were going to find me a new home. Emma's chest constricted. 5 years of teaching had exposed her to every kind of childhood trauma, but hearing it directly from a 7-year-old's mouth never got easier. They locked me in the back of a truck, Mia continued, her words tumbling out now like she'd been holding them in too long. There were other kids too, crying. It was dark and cold and I was so scared. Then we stopped at a place with lights and the driver got out. I heard, she swallowed hard. I heard them talking about money. About how much people would pay for us. That's when I intervened, Dante said quietly. His expression had softened as Mia spoke, something almost gentle entering those cold gray eyes. I'd been tracking that particular truck for 3 days. When the driver left the vehicle unattended, I got the children out. The others are already with people who can help them. Mia was the last one and she's the one in the most danger. Why? Emma asked, even as part of her mind was screaming that she shouldn't be having this conversation, that she should just call the police and let them sort it out. Because she saw too much, Dante said simply. She can identify faces, locations, details that could bring down a significant portion of their operation. Which means they're going to be looking for her. Actively, desperately looking for her. Emma looked down at Mia, who had gone very still against her, and saw the truth in the child's eyes. Not of Dante, she realized with a jolt. Mia's fear wasn't directed at him. It was directed at the memory of what had happened to her, at the men who'd taken her. You rescued her, Emma said slowly, piecing it together. But when you tried to get her into your vehicle just now, she panicked because I'm still a strange man and she's been traumatized. Dante's voice carried unexpected understanding. She agreed to come with me at the truck stop because I got the other children out first. But now, in the dark at another rest stop, her trauma response is overriding logic. She thinks I'm going to abandon her. Or worse, that I'm working with them. Mia's grip on Emma tightened. I don't know who to trust anymore, she whispered. Everyone lies. The bad men said they were taking me somewhere safe. They said my mama sent them. Her voice broke. Maybe she did. Maybe she really doesn't want me. No, baby, Emma said fiercely, kneeling down so she was at Mia's eye level. Your mama wants you. I guarantee she's terrified right now, looking for you, praying you're safe. The men who took you lied about everything because that's what bad people do. Then how do I know he's not lying? Mia looked at Dante, her small face torn between hope and fear. How do I know he's really trying to help? It was a fair question. Emma stood, keeping Mia close while she assessed the man standing a few feet away. Dante Caruso, if that was really his name. He radiated danger and power, but there was something else there too. Something in the way he looked at Mia, with a careful gentleness that seemed almost foreign to his otherwise controlled demeanor. Show me your phone, Emma said suddenly. If you really rescued her, there should be evidence. Calls to someone, texts, something that proves you're taking her somewhere legitimate. Dante's eyebrow rose slightly, but he reached into his pocket and withdrew an expensive-looking smartphone. He unlocked it with his thumbprint and handed it to Emma without hesitation. She scrolled through his recent calls. Multiple calls to someone named Angelo, someone named Father Marcus, someone named Dr. Sophia Chin. Text messages coordinating what looked like the placement of children, medical examinations, safe houses. And then she saw the photo gallery. Thumbnails of images that made her stomach turn. Surveillance photos of trucks, shipping manifests, what looked like law enforcement documentation of trafficking routes. This wasn't the phone of someone casually involved. This was someone who'd been actively investigating, tracking, planning. Father Marcus runs a children's shelter in upstate New York, Dante said quietly. He's been working with trafficking victims for 20 years. Dr. Chin is a pediatric trauma specialist who donates her time to examining rescued children and connecting them with resources. Angelo is, he paused. Angelo handles security. Makes sure the children get where they need to go safely. Emma handed back the phone, her mind racing. Everything he was saying could still be a lie. Elaborate cover stories were part of how predators operated. But there was something in his voice, in the way he spoke about the children, that rang true. I'm going to call the number for Father Marcus, she said, watching Dante's face carefully for any sign of deception. Right now in front of you. And if he doesn't confirm your story, I'm calling the police immediately. Do it, Dante said simply. But do it quickly. Every minute we stand here exposed is another minute for whoever owned that trafficking route to figure out where we are. The casual way he said it sent a chill down Emma's spine. This wasn't hypothetical danger. This was real, immediate, the kind of threat she'd only ever encountered in news stories and true crime documentaries. She dialed the number with shaking fingers, putting the phone on speaker so she could keep her hands on Mia. It rang twice before a warm, gravelly voice answered. Father Marcus speaking. Father Marcus, my name is Emma Torres. I'm at a rest stop on I-85 and I need you to confirm something for me. Do you know someone named Dante Caruso? There was a brief pause, then, yes, I know Dante. Is he there? Is one of the children with him? There's a little girl named Mia. He claims he rescued her from traffickers. Thank God. The relief in Father Marcus's voice was palpable. We've been coordinating all evening. Dante got 7 children out of that truck. 6 are already here at the shelter receiving medical attention and counseling. Mia was being transported separately because she needs additional protection. Is she all right? Emma looked down at the little girl still clutching her shirt, whose eyes had gone wide at hearing the priest's voice confirm Dante's story. She's frightened, Emma said softly. But physically she seems okay. I can imagine. What she witnessed, Father Marcus's voice grew heavier. Dante is telling you the truth, Miss Torres. He's one of the good ones, even if his methods aren't always conventional. If he says Mia needs protection, she needs it. The people who had her are very dangerous and they won't stop looking for her. After a few more exchanges, Emma hung up, her hands still shaking. She looked at Dante, really looked at him, and saw past the intimidating exterior to the exhaustion underneath. The set of his shoulders that spoke of long hours and careful planning. The way his eyes kept scanning the parking lot, alert for threats she couldn't even imagine. "You're really trying to help her," Emma said, and it wasn't quite a question. "I'm really trying to help her," Dante confirmed. "But I understand why you didn't believe me. You did exactly what you should have done. Questioned, verified, protected her." "That's admirable." Mia tugged on Emma's shirt. "Does this mean he's safe? That he's really taking me somewhere safe?" Emma knelt again, framing the little girl's face with her hands. "Yes, sweetheart. I think Mr. Crusoe really is trying to help you. But I also understand why you're scared to go with him alone." "I don't want to be alone," Mia whispered. "Everyone I trust keeps disappearing. My mama, the other kids from the truck. I don't want to be alone with someone I don't know." Emma's heart cracked. This child had been ripped from everything familiar, traumatized by adults who should have protected her, and now was being asked to trust yet another stranger. She looked up at Dante, saw him watching this exchange with an expression she couldn't quite read. Then she heard herself saying something she absolutely should not say, something that would complicate her life in ways she couldn't predict. "What if I came with you? Just until we get Mia to wherever she needs to be. So she's not alone with a stranger." Dante's expression shifted. Surprise, assessment, something that might have been respect. "You'd be putting yourself at risk. If whoever owned that trafficking route tracks us down, then I'll deal with it. But I'm not leaving a traumatized 7-year-old to travel alone with someone she's terrified of, even if you are legitimately trying to help." Emma stood, her decision made. "Where exactly are you taking her?" "Safe house in the mountains. 2 hours from here, remote location, security that would make Fort Knox jealous." Dante's voice was matter-of-fact. "She stays there while we work on finding her mother and building a case against the people who took her." Mia's grip on Emma had loosened slightly, hope creeping into her expression. "You'll really come with me?" "I'll really come with you," Emma confirmed, then looked at Dante. "Unless you have objections?" "I have many objections," Dante said dryly. "Starting with the fact that you're a complete stranger who I know nothing about, who could be compromised, who could be working with the very people I'm protecting Mia from." "Fair point. So ask Father Marcus to vet me while we drive. Call whoever you need to call. But I'm not leaving this child, and she's made it clear she won't go with you alone." For a long moment, Dante studied her face, and Emma had the unsettling sensation of being thoroughly assessed. Then he nodded once, decision made. "Get your things from your car. Leave your vehicle here. I'll have someone collect it and bring it to you later. We're not taking multiple vehicles." "Bossy," Emma muttered, but she was already moving toward her Honda, Mia's small hand still gripping hers. "Efficient," Dante corrected. "And currently responsible for keeping a 7-year-old alive, which requires a certain degree of control." As Emma grabbed her overnight bag from her trunk, as Mia refused to let go of her hand, as Dante made rapid phone calls coordinating their route and security, Emma realized with a strange mixture of terror and certainty that her life had just taken an irrevocable turn. She'd been running from her collapsed life in Boston, heading toward her sister's place to regroup and rebuild. Now she was climbing into an SUV with a man who radiated danger and control, protecting a traumatized child from threats she could barely comprehend. The rational part of her brain was screaming that this was insane. The teacher part, the part that had spent 5 years protecting children and advocating for their safety, was saying this was exactly what needed to happen. As they pulled out of the rest stop, Mia wedged between them in the back seat. Dante had someone else driving. A quiet man he'd introduced only as Marco. Emma caught Dante's gaze in the rearview mirror. "For the record," she said quietly, "if you're lying about any of this, if you turn out to be one of the bad guys, I will find a way to destroy you." The corner of Dante's mouth twitched, not quite a smile but close. "Noted. And for the record, if you turn out to be compromised, if you put Mia in danger in any way, you'll never see it coming." Mia looked between them, her small face uncertain. "Are you two going to fight?" "No, baby," Emma said, pulling the little girl close. "We're just making sure we understand each other. Establishing boundaries," Dante added, his voice gentler when addressing Mia. "Which is important when strangers have to work together to keep someone safe." Mia seemed to accept this, finally relaxing against Emma's side as the SUV merged onto the highway. Within minutes, exhaustion overtook her trauma, and she fell asleep with her head on Emma's lap. Emma stroked the tangled dark hair gently, careful not to wake her, and felt the weight of choices made settling over her shoulders. She'd just entangled herself in something dangerous, complicated, and completely unplanned. But as she looked down at Mia's sleeping face, still tear-stained but finally peaceful, Emma knew she couldn't have made any other choice. Some things were worth the risk. Some children were worth protecting regardless of the cost. She just hoped she'd survive whatever came next. The safe house appeared out of the darkness like something from a different world. Emma had been fighting exhaustion for the past hour, Mia sleeping fitfully against her side, when the SUV turned off the main highway onto a narrow mountain road. Trees pressed close on either side, their branches creating a tunnel that blocked out even the moonlight. "We're almost there," Dante said quietly from the front passenger seat. It was the first thing he'd said in nearly 40 minutes, and his voice startled Emma from the half-doze she'd slipped into. She straightened carefully, trying not to disturb Mia, and peered through the windshield. The road had become little more than a gravel track, winding up into mountains she couldn't see but could feel looming around them. No other vehicles. No lights except their own headlights cutting through the darkness. "This is remote," she said, trying to keep the nervousness from her voice. "That's the point." Dante glanced back at her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "No neighbors to notice comings and goings. No roads except this one which we monitor. Cell service requires a signal booster. If you wanted to find this place, you'd need to know exactly where to look." Emma wasn't sure if that was reassuring or terrifying. Probably both. The SUV rounded a final curve and suddenly there were lights ahead. Not the harsh fluorescence of civilization, but warm, golden light spilling from windows. The safe house was larger than Emma had expected. Not quite a mansion but substantial. 2 stories of stone and wood that looked like it had been built to withstand anything nature or humans could throw at it. Marco pulled up to the front entrance and Emma saw figures moving inside. Security, she realized. This wasn't just a house. This was a fortress dressed up as a mountain retreat. "Wait here until I give the all clear," Dante said, already opening his door. "Marco stays with you." He moved with that predatory grace she'd noticed at the rest stop, surveying the area with the kind of vigilance that spoke of experience with danger. After a moment he gestured and Marco opened Emma's door. "Come on, sweetheart," Emma whispered to Mia, gently shaking the little girl's shoulder. "We're here." Mia woke with a start, her small body going rigid with fear before she recognized Emma. "Where?" "Safe place, remember? Mr. Crusoe's house in the mountains." Emma kept her voice soft, soothing. "Nobody can hurt you here." They climbed out of the SUV, Mia's hand gripping Emma's so tightly it almost hurt. The night air was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of pine trees and mountain earth. So different from the exhaust-heavy air of the highway rest stop where this had all begun. Dante was waiting at the door and as they approached, Emma saw his expression soften when he looked at Mia. "There's someone inside who wants to meet you," he said gently. "Her name is Rosa. She's going to make sure you have everything you need: food, a bath, clean clothes, a comfortable bed." Mia pressed closer to Emma. "Is Emma staying?" "Yes," Dante said without hesitation. "Emma's staying as long as you need her." The certainty in his voice made Emma look at him sharply, but he was already turning toward the house. They followed him inside and Emma's first impression was of warmth. Not just temperature, though the house was pleasantly heated after the cool mountain air, but emotional warmth. Comfortable furniture, soft lighting, photographs on the walls showing mountain landscapes and candid shots of people laughing. This wasn't what she'd expected from a safe house. This looked like a home. A woman appeared from what looked like a kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes and silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. "You must be Mia," she said, her voice carrying the gentle authority of someone who'd spent a lifetime caring for children. "I'm Rosa. I've been getting your room ready." Mia looked up at Emma, uncertainty written across her small face. "It's okay, baby," Emma said softly. "Rosa seems nice. And I'll be right here." "Actually," Rosa said, moving closer with slow, non-threatening movements, "I was hoping you might both want to see the room together. I wasn't sure what a 7-year-old girl would like, so I got a little bit of everything." The kindness in her voice, The understanding that Mia needed Emma close made something in Emma's chest loosen. Whatever this place was, whoever these people were, they understood trauma. They understood what this child needed. "Can we see?" Mia asked Emma, and there was the first hint of curiosity breaking through the fear. "Of course we can." Rosa led them up a wide staircase to the second floor, chatting gently about the house, about the mountains, about anything except why Mia was here. Smart, Emma thought. Give the child a chance to breathe, to settle before diving into the trauma. The bedroom Rosa showed them was perfect. Not overwhelmingly fancy but comfortable and welcoming. A queen-sized bed with a mountain of pillows and stuffed animals. A bookshelf already filled with children's books. A window with curtains that Rosa immediately showed them how to close for privacy. A connected bathroom with towels in soft colors and child-friendly toiletries already set out. "I also have a room next door," Rosa said to Emma, "for mothers or guardians who stay with the children. It connects through that door." She pointed to a door in the far wall. "So you can have privacy, but Mia can reach you instantly if she needs you." Mia's grip on Emma's hand had loosened as she looked around the room, taking in all the careful details. The nightlight already plugged in beside the bed. The cozy reading nook by the window. The art supplies on a small desk. "Is this really for me?" she asked, her voice small and wondering. "Really for you," Rosa confirmed. "For as long as you need it. Now I bet you're hungry. When did you last eat?" Mia's face clouded. "I don't remember. Before the truck." Rosa's expression tightened briefly with anger, quickly smoothed over. "Then let's fix that. I made chicken soup and fresh bread. Does that sound good?" 20 minutes later, Emma sat at a large kitchen table watching Mia eat like she was starving, which she probably was. Rosa had outdone herself. The soup was rich and comforting, the bread still warm from the oven. There was also fruit, cheese, cookies for dessert. Everything a traumatized child might need to feel cared for. Dante had disappeared somewhere in the house, giving them space, and Emma was grateful. She needed time to process everything that had happened, everything she'd agreed to. "You're good with her," Rosa said quietly, settling into the chair beside Emma with her own bowl of soup. "Have you worked with children before?" "I was a teacher. Elementary school, 3rd grade." Emma watched Mia carefully separate the vegetables from the broth, eating around them like children everywhere did. "I lost my job 3 months ago. Budget cuts." "That must have been difficult." It was. Emma realized she hadn't talked about it with anyone who would actually listen. Her ex-boyfriend had brushed off her grief, told her to just find another job like teaching positions were growing on trees. "I loved that job. The kids, the routine, feeling like I was making a difference." "You made a difference tonight," Rosa said. "Mia wouldn't have gotten in that SUV with Dante alone. She was too frightened. You gave her someone to trust." Emma looked at the older woman, really looked at her. "How often do you do this? Taken children from?" She lowered her voice. "From trafficking situations?" "Often enough that this house exists." Rosa's voice was matter-of-fact, but Emma heard the steel underneath. "There are more children trapped in this horror than most people can imagine. Dante does what he can to get them out, and I help them heal once they're here." "What is Dante exactly?" "Some kind of vigilante." Rosa's smile was complicated. "He's someone with resources, connections, and a very particular skill set who decided that the official channels weren't moving fast enough. He's saved dozens of children in the past 3 years. Gets them out, gets them safe, then works to build cases against the traffickers that will actually stick in court." "That sounds expensive. Time-consuming. Dangerous." "All of the above." Rosa stood to clear Mia's empty bowl. "But some people can't stand by when they know children are suffering. Dante is one of those people. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one." After Mia had been bathed and dressed in new pajamas that actually fit, after Rosa had read her 3 bedtime stories and Emma had promised at least 5 times that she wasn't going anywhere, the little girl finally fell asleep in the big comfortable bed. Emma stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching Mia's chest rise and fall, her face finally peaceful in sleep. The stuffed bear Rosa had given her was clutched tight against her chest. "She'll have nightmares," Dante's voice came from behind her, quiet and knowing. "Probably several times tonight. Maybe for weeks." Emma turned to find him leaning against the hallway wall, looking exhausted now that there was no immediate crisis requiring his vigilance. He'd changed into clean clothes at some point. Dark jeans and a gray Henley that should have looked casual but somehow still managed to look dangerous on him. "I figured," Emma said, stepping out of Mia's room and pulling the door mostly closed, leaving it cracked so she'd hear if the little girl woke. "I've worked with enough traumatized kids to know that sleep doesn't mean peace. Your room is this way." Dante gestured down the hallway. "Unless you want to sleep in Mia's room?" Rosa mentioned the connecting door. "I'll use my own room but keep the connecting door open." Emma followed him, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. The adrenaline that had sustained her through the past several hours was wearing off, leaving her shaky and drained. The room Dante showed her was similar to Mia's, comfortable without being ostentatious, with the same attention to detail. Someone had already brought up her overnight bag from the SUV, setting it on a chair by the window. "There are clothes in the closet if you need anything," Dante said from the doorway. "Rosa keeps the house stocked for various sizes. Bathroom is through there." He pointed to a door Emma assumed led to a private bathroom. "Kitchen is always open if you get hungry. There's security throughout the house but they're trained to be unobtrusive. You probably won't even notice them." "How many people live here?" Emma asked, sitting on the edge of the bed because her legs were suddenly too tired to hold her up. "Depends on the week. Right now it's Rosa, Marco, 2 other security personnel, and a rotating staff who help with maintenance and supplies. When we have children here we bring in additional support, therapists, doctors, whatever they need." Dante leaned against the doorframe, not quite entering her space. "You should sleep. Tomorrow will be complicated." "Complicated how?" "We need to find Mia's mother. Verify she wasn't complicit in the abduction. Build a case against the traffickers that will actually lead to convictions. Keep Mia safe in the meantime." He listed it all with the same matter-of-fact tone Rosa had used. "And figure out what to do with you." "What to do with me?" Emma's exhaustion made her voice sharper than she intended. "I'm not a problem that needs solving. I came to help Mia and once she's settled I'll leave." "Will you?" Dante's gray eyes held hers, intense and assessing. "She's attached to you. You saw how she wouldn't let go of your hand, how she wouldn't eat until you sat with her. What happens when you leave and she feels abandoned again?" The accusation in his words stung because it was accurate. Emma had inserted herself into this situation with the best intentions, but she hadn't thought through the consequences. Hadn't considered that a traumatized 7-year-old would form an attachment that would be painful to break. "I don't know," she admitted quietly. "I didn't think that far ahead. I just knew I couldn't leave her terrified at that rest stop. That instinct, to protect without considering the cost, is going to complicate your life considerably." Dante's voice wasn't unkind, just honest. "You're not trained for this. You're not prepared for the kind of danger that comes with knowing too much about trafficking operations. The smart thing would be for you to leave tomorrow, let Rosa take over with Mia, go back to your normal life." "But..." Emma heard the implied continuation in his tone. "But Mia needs you. And you strike me as someone who doesn't walk away from children who need her, even when walking away would be safer." He straightened from the doorframe. "So tomorrow we'll talk about what staying would actually look like. The rules, the risks, the reality of living in this world temporarily." "Your world," Emma said. "Which is what, exactly? Who are you, Dante Crusoe?" "Really?" He smiled then, a brief flash of something that might have been humor. "That's a conversation for tomorrow when you're not about to fall asleep sitting up. Sleep, Emma. I'll have someone wake you if Mia needs you." He was gone before Emma could respond, pulling the door closed behind him with a soft click that felt oddly final. Emma sat there for a long moment, processing the past few hours. She'd left Boston this morning, was it only this morning? Running from a collapsed life. Now she was in a safe house in the mountains, protecting a trafficked child, apparently under the watch of a man who operated outside the law to rescue children. The system had failed. Her life had taken the kind of turn that didn't happen to normal people. Except it had happened. She was here. And regardless of how insane this was, she couldn't imagine making any other choice. Emma checked the connecting door to Mia's room, making sure it was unlocked and slightly ajar. Then she finally let herself collapse into bed, not even bothering to change out of her clothes. She was asleep within minutes, exhausted beyond anything she'd ever experienced. The nightmares started at 2 in the morning. Emma woke to the sound of Mia screaming, a high, terrified sound that had her stumbling out of bed before she was fully conscious. She burst through the connecting door to find Mia thrashing in the bed, tangled in blankets, still asleep but clearly in the grip of a nightmare. "Sweetheart, wake up," Emma said gently, approaching the bed slowly so as not to startle her. "Mia baby, you're safe. You're dreaming." Mia's eyes flew open, wild and unseeing. She scrambled backward until she hit the headboard, her breathing coming in panicked gasps. "It's Emma," Emma said, keeping her voice calm and level despite her racing heart. "You're in the safe house, remember? In the mountains. Nobody can hurt you here." Recognition slowly dawned in Mia's eyes. "Emma. Right here, baby. You had a bad dream." Mia launched herself forward and Emma caught her, holding the trembling child close. "They were there." Mia sobbed against Emma's shoulder. "The bad men. They were coming to get me again. They said. Sure, it's okay. You don't have to tell me right now. Just breathe with me, okay? In and out, nice and slow." The door opened and Emma looked up to find Dante standing there in sleep pants and a t-shirt, his hair disheveled. He must have been asleep in a nearby room, close enough to hear Mia's screams. "Nightmare?" he asked quietly. Emma nodded, continuing to rub soothing circles on Mia's back. Dante moved into the room with surprising gentleness, not approaching too quickly. "Mia, would you like some warm milk? My grandmother used to make it for me when I had bad dreams. She said it helped." Mia lifted her head from Emma's shoulder, her face tear-streaked. "Your grandmother?" "Nonna Isabella. She raised me after my parents died." Dante's voice was softer than Emma had heard it, carrying genuine warmth. She was the best cook in Brooklyn and she knew every old remedy for everything. Bad dreams, upset stomachs, broken hearts. She had a solution for all of it. "What about being scared?" Mia asked in a small voice. "Did she have something for that?" "She did." "Want to know what it was?" Mia nodded. "She'd tell me that fear is like a storm. It feels huge and terrifying when you're in the middle of it, but storms always pass. The sun always comes back." Dante moved closer, kneeling beside the bed so he was at Mia's eye level. "The bad men who scared you, they can't reach you here. I promise you that. This house has security better than the president's. Nobody gets in or out without us knowing." "But what if they find me anyway?" The question was barely a whisper. "Then they'd have to go through me first." Dante's voice carried absolute certainty. "And I'm very, very good at protecting people I care about." Mia studied his face for a long moment, and Emma watched something shift in the child's expression. The beginning of trust, fragile but real. "Can I have the warm milk?" Mia asked. "Absolutely. Emma, you want some too?" Emma realized she was still in her clothes from earlier, her hair probably a disaster, holding a 7-year-old in the middle of the night in a safe house in the mountains. This was so far outside her normal life that it felt surreal. "Sure," she said. "Warm milk sounds good." They ended up in the kitchen, Mia wrapped in a blanket and sitting on Emma's lap while Dante heated milk on the stove and added honey and a touch of vanilla. Rosa appeared at some point, moving through the kitchen with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before, adding cookies to a plate and making sure everyone was comfortable. "The first night is always the hardest," Rosa said quietly to Emma while Dante was distracted with the milk. "It gets better. Not quickly, not easily, but it does get better." "How do you do this?" Emma asked. "How do you keep opening your heart to traumatized children, knowing you'll have to say goodbye when they leave?" Rosa's smile was sad but genuine. "Because while they're here, they're loved. They're safe. They're shown that not all adults are monsters. That's worth the heartbreak of goodbye." Mia fell asleep again around 3:30, finally relaxed after the warm milk and quiet conversation. Emma carried her back to bed, tucking her in carefully, and this time when sleep claimed the little girl, it seemed deeper, more peaceful. Emma returned to her own room to find Dante still in the hallway, leaning against the wall like he'd been waiting for her. "You're good with her," he said quietly. "You said that before. At the rest stop." "It's still true. Most people would have panicked, made it worse. You knew exactly what she needed." Emma shrugged, suddenly aware of how close they were standing in the dim hallway. 5 years of teaching. You learn to read children, to understand what they need even when they can't articulate it. "Is that what you are?" "A teacher." I told Rosa. I lost my job 3 months ago. Budget cuts." Emma leaned against the opposite wall, exhausted but somehow not ready to go back to bed. I was on my way to my sister's place in North Carolina when I stopped at that rest stop. Running away from my failed life in Boston. Doesn't sound like failure to me. Sounds like bad luck and a broken system. The unexpected kindness in his voice made Emma's throat tight. What about you? Who is Dante Caruso when he's not rescuing trafficked children? Dante was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable in the dim light. That's a complicated question. I've got time. Sleep doesn't seem likely at this point. He studied her face, seeming to weigh something. Then he gestured down the hallway. Come on. If we're going to have this conversation, we should at least be comfortable. Emma followed him downstairs to what turned out to be a library, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, comfortable leather chairs, a fireplace that Dante lit with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, a warm glow filled the room, pushing back the mountain darkness beyond the windows. My family has been in, let's call it alternative business, for 3 generations, Dante said, settling into one of the chairs and gesturing for Emma to take the other. My grandfather came from Sicily with connections to certain organizations. My father built on that foundation. By the time I was old enough to understand what our family actually did, I was already part of it. The Mafia, Emma said bluntly. That's a crude term for a nuanced reality, but essentially yes. No apology in his voice, just fact. I spent my 20s learning the business, building my own reputation, establishing territory and influence. I was good at it. Very good. By 30, I controlled significant operations across 3 states. And now you rescue children from traffickers. Emma tried to reconcile the 2 images, mob boss and child protector. 3 years ago, I was investigating a rival organization's operations, trying to understand their revenue streams so I could either absorb or eliminate them. Dante's voice went flat, emotionless. I discovered they were making significant money from human trafficking. Children specifically. I thought at first it was an isolated thing, one operation run by particularly depraved individuals. He stared into the fire and Emma saw his jaw tighten. Then I found out it wasn't isolated. It was systematic, widespread, protected by people in positions of power who were either customers or beneficiaries of the profits. Law enforcement knew. They had evidence, witnesses, documentation. But prosecutions were rare, convictions almost impossible. The whole system was designed to fail these children. So you decided to fix it yourself, Emma said quietly. I decided I couldn't be part of a world that allowed it to continue. Dante looked at her directly, his gray eyes intense. I had resources, connections, people who were loyal to me. I could do things law enforcement couldn't, work outside legal boundaries, apply pressure in ways the system wouldn't allow. So I did. How many children have you rescued? 63 as of tonight. Counting the 7 from that truck stop. His voice carried quiet satisfaction. 63 children who would otherwise still be trapped or dead or worse. Emma let that sink in. 63 children. 63 lives completely changed because this dangerous man had decided his power should be used for something other than profit. The people you work with, Rosa, Marco, Father Marcus, they know what you are? What you do? They know everything. They choose to work with me anyway because results matter more than methods. Dante leaned forward, his intensity sharpening. I'm not a good man, Emma. I've done things that would horrify you. My business interests involve activities you'd consider criminal. The money funding this safe house, funding the operations that rescue these children, comes from enterprises that exist in legal gray areas or darker. But you're using that money to save children, Emma said. Does that make it better? Does the destination justify the journey? He asked it like a genuine question, like he didn't have the answer himself. Emma thought about it, about the 7-year-old sleeping upstairs who wouldn't be safe without Dante's intervention. About the 63 other children who'd been rescued because this man had decided to be something other than what his family legacy demanded. I think, she said slowly, that morality is more complicated than we're taught. I think you're doing something important, something necessary, and if your methods aren't always legal, maybe that says more about the limitations of law than it does about your character. Dante's expression shifted, surprise, then something that might have been relief. That's a remarkably understanding response. I'm a teacher. I've seen how systems fail children. How bureaucracy and red tape and legal limitations mean that kids slip through cracks that shouldn't exist. Emma met his gaze directly. If you're filling those cracks with illegal money and questionable methods, I'm not going to judge you for it. Not when the results are children like Mia getting a second chance. The silence that followed was comfortable, contemplative. Outside, Emma could hear wind moving through the pine trees, the crackle of the fire, the old house settling around them. You should stay, Dante said finally. Not just tomorrow but for as long as Mia needs you. I'll pay you consultant fees for child care and trauma support. You said you lost your teaching job. This could be temporary employment while you figure out your next move. You want to pay me to be here? I want you to not have to worry about money while you're helping a traumatized child heal. There's a difference. Dante's voice was matter-of-fact. Plus, frankly, having you here makes my job easier. Mia trusts you. That trust will be crucial when we try to find her mother, when we ask her to describe what happened, when we work on building a case against the traffickers. Emma knew she should say no. Should maintain boundaries, should not get further entangled in this dangerous, complicated world. But she thought about Mia's small hand gripping hers, about the way the little girl had finally relaxed when Emma promised to stay. How long are we talking about? She asked. Weeks, possibly months, depending on how long it takes to resolve Mia's situation. Find her mother, build the case, ensure she can be safely reunited with family or placed in a situation where she won't be vulnerable again. And what about the danger? You said the traffickers would be looking for her. They'll be looking but they won't find her. Not here. Absolute certainty in his voice. This location is known to maybe 10 people in the entire world. The property is owned through shell corporations that can't be traced back to me. We have surveillance on every access point within a 5-mile radius. If anyone who shouldn't be here gets close, we'll know long before they become a threat. Emma thought about her empty apartment in Boston that she couldn't afford anymore. About her sister's place in North Carolina where she'd be a burden, taking up space while she tried to rebuild her life. About Mia who needed her in a way that felt important, meaningful, real. Okay, she said. I'll stay. For Mia. But I want to be clear. I'm not part of your organization. I'm not complicit in whatever illegal activities fund this place. I'm just a teacher helping a traumatized child. Understood. Dante stood, offering his hand. Welcome to the team, Emma Torres. Even if you insist you're not really part of it. Emma shook his hand, feeling the warmth and strength in his grip, and wondered what exactly she'd just agreed to. As they climbed the stairs back to their rooms, as Emma checked on Mia one more time and found her sleeping peacefully, she realized that her life had completely changed in the span of 12 hours. She'd come to that rest stop running from failure. Now she was running toward something she didn't fully understand yet, something dangerous and complicated and absolutely necessary. And despite every rational objection her brain could manufacture, it felt like exactly where she was supposed to be. 3 weeks at the safe house had established a rhythm that felt almost normal. If Emma ignored the armed security patrolling the perimeter and the fact that she was living with a man whose legitimate business empire was built on decidedly illegitimate foundations. Mia had slowly begun to heal. The nightmares came less frequently now, maybe twice a week instead of every night. She smiled more, laughed at Rosa's terrible jokes, and had started asking questions about when she could see her mother again. That last development was both encouraging and heartbreaking, because the answer was complicated in ways a 7-year-old shouldn't have to understand. Emma had fallen into an unexpected partnership with Dante. Mornings were spent with Mia. Lessons since the little girl couldn't attend regular school yet, play therapy techniques Emma had researched online, and simple activities that let a traumatized child just be a child. Afternoons, while Mia napped or spent time with Rosa, Emma would join Dante in his office to discuss Mia's case. They'd located Mia's mother, Sarah Martinez, within the first week. She was alive, frantic with worry, and had filed police reports that went precisely nowhere. The trafficking ring had been careful. They'd taken Mia from a school parking lot in broad daylight, and the security footage had mysteriously disappeared. Sarah had been working 2 jobs to support her daughter, and in her absence, predators had found an opportunity. She's clean, Dante had said after his people finished vetting Sarah. No criminal connections, no drug use, no indication she was complicit. She's exactly what she appears to be, a single mother who was working her ass off and got targeted because her daughter was vulnerable. The relief Emma felt at that news surprised her with its intensity. She'd grown to care about Mia deeply, and the thought that the little girl's mother might have betrayed her had been almost unbearable. But reuniting them wasn't simple. The trafficking ring was still operational, still looking for Mia, still dangerous. Until Dante could dismantle their organization or at least remove the immediate threat, bringing Sarah to the safe house would potentially compromise their location. And taking Mia to Sarah would put both of them at risk. So they waited and planned, and built a case that would actually result in convictions instead of just scattering the criminals to regroup elsewhere. Emma had learned more about the darker side of the world in 3 weeks than she'd learned in her entire previous life. Dante was surprisingly forthcoming about his operations, his methods, the moral calculus that governed his decisions. He seemed to appreciate that she asked hard questions, that she pushed back when something didn't sit right with her conscience. "You're not what I expected," he'd said one evening after a particularly intense discussion about the ethics of using criminal connections to gather evidence that law enforcement couldn't legally obtain. "What did you expect?" Emma had asked. "Someone more judgmental. More black and white in their thinking." Dante had been sitting across from her in the library, the firelight casting shadows across his angular features. "Most people can't reconcile the contradictions. They need me to be either good or bad, savior or villain. Most people haven't spent 5 years watching the system fail children over and over." Emma had met his gaze directly. "I'm not saying I approve of everything you do. I don't. But I understand why you do it and I can't argue with the results." Something had shifted between them in that moment. An understanding, an acceptance, the foundation of something that felt dangerous in an entirely different way than the external threats they were navigating. Emma had started noticing things she shouldn't notice. The way Dante's voice softened when he spoke to Mia. How he'd quietly arranged for a video call between Mia and her mother, using untraceable technology so Sarah could at least see her daughter was safe. The exhaustion he tried to hide after spending hours coordinating operations to track down the trafficking ring's leadership. He was complicated, criminal and protector, dangerous and gentle, ruthless in business but tender with a traumatized child. And Emma was starting to care about him in ways that had nothing to do with gratitude or professional respect. She'd catch herself watching him interact with Mia, teaching the little girl Italian phrases or patiently explaining something about the mountains surrounding the safe house. She'd noticed the strength in his hands when he helped cook dinner, the rare genuine smiles that transformed his usually serious expression, the intelligence and dark humor that emerged during their late-night conversations. This was a terrible idea. Getting emotionally involved with Dante Caruso was possibly the worst decision Emma could make. He lived in a world of violence and moral compromise. His life was dangerous, complicated, the opposite of the stable, normal future she'd always imagined for herself. But her old life was gone anyway. The teaching job, the apartment, the safe routine, all of it had collapsed. Maybe it was time to stop clinging to the person she'd thought she was supposed to be and accept who she actually was. Someone who would risk everything for a child who needed her. Someone who could look at a man like Dante and see past the criminal to the person underneath. Someone brave enough, or foolish enough, to build a life in the spaces between legal and illegal, right and wrong, safety and danger. The crisis came on a Wednesday evening, 3 weeks and 4 days after Emma had first intervened at that rest stop. Dante burst into the library where Emma was reading, his expression grimmer than she'd ever seen it. "We have a problem." Emma was on her feet immediately. "What kind of problem?" "The trafficking ring tracked down Sarah. She's alive, but they're using her as bait." Dante's voice was clipped, controlled fury barely contained. "They sent her a message. They'll release her unharmed if Mia is returned within 48 hours. If not, Sarah dies and they start targeting other families connected to the children I've rescued." The room tilted. "They found her? How?" "Someone in law enforcement is compromised. They accessed the police reports Sarah filed, tracked her to the safe location we'd arranged for her." Dante's jaw tightened. "My fault. I should have moved her sooner, established better security. What do we do?" Emma forced herself to think past the panic. "Can you get Sarah out? Rescue her the way you rescued Mia?" "I'm working on it. But the location where they're holding her is heavily guarded, and they're expecting an attempt. Going in without proper planning would likely get Sarah killed and compromise multiple ongoing operations." He moved to the window, staring out at the darkening mountains. "I have people gathering intelligence now. We'll have a plan within 24 hours. And if the plan doesn't work? If we can't get her out in time? Dante turned to face her, and Emma saw the weight of impossible choices in his eyes. Then we make the hardest decision I've ever had to make. We tell Mia the truth and let her decide whether to trade herself for her mother. She's 7 years old. Emma's voice rose despite her attempt to stay calm. You can't put that choice on a child. I can't let her mother die without giving Mia the option. Dante's voice was quiet but firm. If something happened to Sarah and Mia found out later that we could have prevented it by returning her, the psychological damage would be catastrophic. At least this way she has agency. Agency to walk back into hell? Emma moved closer to him, fury and fear making her reckless. To sacrifice herself? That's not agency, that's trauma forcing an impossible choice. I know. The raw pain in his voice stopped Emma's tirade. I know, Emma. But the alternative is making the choice for her, and I've learned that taking away someone's control in an already uncontrollable situation does more harm than honoring their autonomy, even when that autonomy leads to a decision that breaks your heart. Emma wanted to argue, to find some solution that didn't involve a 7-year-old choosing between her own safety and her mother's life. But she'd worked with enough traumatized children to know Dante was right. Taking away Mia's choice would reinforce the helplessness the trafficking had created. Giving her control, even in an impossible situation, might be the only way to preserve her sense of self. I hate this, Emma said quietly. So do I. Dante reached out, his hand cupping her cheek with surprising gentleness. But I promise you I will do everything in my power to find a solution that saves both of them. I have resources they don't know about, people who owe me favors, options we haven't explored yet. We're not giving up. The touch of his hand against her face, the intensity of his gaze, the absolute certainty in his voice. Emma felt something inside her crack open. She'd been holding her feelings at arm's length for 3 weeks, maintaining professional distance, pretending her growing attachment to Dante was just gratitude or circumstantial bonding. But standing here in the fading light, faced with the possibility of losing Mia, of having to watch this complicated, dangerous man she'd come to care about shoulder an impossible burden, Emma couldn't pretend anymore. I trust you, she said softly. I don't know when it happened, but I do. I trust you to find a way. Dante's expression shifted, surprise, then something warmer, more vulnerable. Emma. Don't. She stepped back, needing space before she said something she couldn't take back. Just fix this. Get Sarah out. Keep Mia safe. We'll deal with everything else after. The next 24 hours were the longest of Emma's life. Dante disappeared into his office with Marco and several other people Emma had never met, coordinating something complex and dangerous that he wouldn't explain in detail. Rosa kept Mia occupied with cooking projects and movies, maintaining the illusion that everything was normal while the adults worked frantically to prevent catastrophe. Emma tried to help, but mostly she just felt useless. Her skills were teaching and childcare, not tactical rescue operations. So she did what she could. Kept Mia happy and distracted, made sure everyone ate, tried not to fall apart at the thought of what might happen if Dante's plan failed. Late that night, after Mia had finally fallen asleep, Emma found Dante on the porch. He was standing at the railing, staring out at the mountains silhouetted against the stars, his shoulders tight with tension. Couldn't sleep? She asked, moving to stand beside him. Haven't tried yet. Too much to coordinate. He didn't look at her, his gaze fixed on the darkness. We move on Sarah's location in 6 hours. I'll be leading the team personally. Emma's heart stuttered. Is that safe? If something goes wrong? If something goes wrong, I want to be there to fix it. This is my operation, my responsibility. I'm not sending people into danger I'm not willing to face myself. Now he did look at her, and Emma saw exhaustion and determination in equal measure. It'll work, Emma. I've run through every scenario, planned for every contingency. We'll get Sarah out. And if you don't come back? The question escaped before she could stop it. If something happens to you? Rosa knows everything. She'll take care of Mia, make sure she's safe and eventually reunited with her mother. Marco will handle my business interests and ensure the safe house continues operating. You'll be taken care of financially. I've already set up an account in your name with enough money to. I don't care about money. Emma's voice cracked. I'm asking what happens to you. If you're willing to die for this. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to face her fully, his expression more open than she'd ever seen it. I've been willing to die for a lot of things, Emma. Territory, reputation, family, honor. But this is the first time I'd actually be dying for something that matters. For a child's chance to have her mother back. For justice against people who profit from destroying innocence. That's worth the risk. You matter too, Emma said fiercely. Not just what you can do for others, not just your resources or your protection. Dante Caruso, the person. You matter. His hand came up to cup her face again, thumb stroking her cheekbone. When this is over, he said quietly, we should talk about this. About what's been growing between us. But right now, with everything uncertain, I can't. Emma rose on her toes and kissed him. Cut off whatever careful, noble thing he'd been about to say with the press of her lips against his. It was brief, chaste, nothing like the passionate kiss she actually wanted. But it was a promise, a statement, an acknowledgement of feelings neither of them had been willing to voice. When she pulled back, Dante was staring at her with an expression that made her breath catch. Come back safe, she whispered. So we can have that conversation. I will. He kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. I promise. 6 hours later, Dante left with Marco and 4 other men Emma didn't know. She stood at the window watching their vehicles disappear down the mountain road, her heart in her throat. Rosa found her there an hour later, still staring at the empty road. He'll come back, the older woman said gently. I've seen him go into danger a dozen times. He always comes back. There's a first time for everything, Emma said, unable to shake the dread sitting heavy in her stomach. Yes, but this time he has something worth coming back for. Rosa's smile was knowing. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. That's powerful motivation to survive. The hours crawled past with agonizing slowness. Mia woke up asking where Dante was, and Emma manufactured a story about business meetings in the city. They made pancakes for breakfast, worked on reading lessons, played games that didn't require Emma to think too hard because her mind was elsewhere. At 2 in the afternoon, Emma's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Package secured. Complications but manageable. Home by dinner. The relief was so intense Emma had to sit down. Rosa saw her expression and smiled. He got her. He got her. Emma read the message 3 more times, her hands shaking. They're coming back. They arrived just after 5, 2 SUVs pulling up to the safe house in the golden late afternoon light. Emma had been watching from the window for the past hour, and the moment she saw the vehicles she was moving. She burst out the front door as Dante climbed out of the passenger seat. He was moving stiffly, and as he turned toward the house, Emma saw blood on his shirt. You're hurt. She was across the driveway before she'd consciously decided to move. You said manageable complications, you're bleeding. Flesh wound. Dante's smile was tired but genuine. Looks worse than it is. Rosa's already texted Dr. Chin. She'll be here within the hour to check everyone over. Everyone. Emma's eyes went to the second SUV, where Marco was carefully helping someone out. Sarah Martinez looked nothing like the professional headshots Emma had seen in the case file. She was thin, bruised, with the haunted expression of someone who'd endured more than any person should. But when her eyes met Emma's, there was strength there too. Survival. You're Emma, Sarah said, her voice hoarse. Dante told me about you on the drive. You've been taking care of my Mia. She's been taking care of all of us, Dante corrected. Emma, this is Sarah. Sarah, Emma Torres. Before Emma could respond, a small voice shouted from the doorway. Mama. Mia stood on the porch, her face a mixture of disbelief and desperate hope. For a frozen moment, nobody moved. Then Sarah was running despite her obvious injuries, and Mia was flying down the steps, and they collided in the middle of the driveway in an embrace that made Emma's eyes burn with tears. My baby, Sarah sobbed, her hands running over Mia's face, her hair like she couldn't quite believe she was real. My sweet girl, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. You came back, Mia cried, clinging to her mother with desperate strength. I thought they took you forever. I thought. I'm here, baby. I'm never letting you go again. Emma watched them hold each other, listened to Sarah's whispered promises and Mia's broken sobs, and felt something shift in her chest. This was why Dante did what he did. This moment, this reunion, this family being restored despite impossible odds. She felt Dante's hand find hers, his fingers intertwining with hers. When she looked up at him, his expression was soft, almost vulnerable. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For trusting me. For keeping her safe while I found her mother. For being exactly what both of them needed." "You did the hard part," Emma replied. "The dangerous part. We all did our part." He squeezed her hand gently. "That's what family does." Family. The word resonated through Emma like a bell. That's what this had become somehow. This strange collection of people bound together by trauma and protection and the shared mission of keeping children safe. Family chosen rather than inherited, built on purpose rather than obligation. Over the next few hours, as Dr. Chin treated everyone's injuries, Dante's flesh wound required 12 stitches. As Sarah and Mia were given the master bedroom and time alone to reconnect, as Rosa coordinated dinner for what felt like an army of people, Emma found herself watching Dante. He moved through it all with quiet efficiency, making sure everyone was cared for, coordinating security now that they had an additional person at the safe house, dealing with the aftermath of the rescue operation. But Emma could see the exhaustion catching up to him, the way he favored his injured side, the tension that hadn't left his shoulders despite the successful outcome. After dinner, after Mia had finally fallen asleep curled against her mother in their room, after the house had quieted down, Emma found Dante in the library again. He was standing by the window with a glass of whiskey, staring out at the darkness. "You should be resting," Emma said, closing the door behind her. "Should be doing a lot of things." Dante didn't turn around. "Checking in with my business operations, reviewing security protocols, planning the next phase of dismantling the trafficking ring now that we have Sarah's testimony. But instead you're standing here staring at the mountains." Emma moved to stand beside him. "Why?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Because for the first time in 3 years of doing this work, I'm realizing that saving children isn't enough anymore. I want..." He stopped, shook his head. "What do you want?" Emma asked softly. "This." He gestured at the house around them. "Not just the missions and the rescues but the after. The moment when a mother gets her daughter back. The sound of a child laughing instead of crying. Coming home to someone who's worried about me instead of just cataloging my assets for when I don't come back." Emma's breath caught. "Dante, I'm falling in love with you." He said it quietly, certainly, like he was stating a fact rather than making a confession. "I don't know when it happened. Maybe when you stood up to me at that rest stop. Maybe when I watched you comfort Mia through her nightmares. Maybe during our late-night conversations when you challenged me to be better than what I was born into." He finally turned to face her, and Emma saw vulnerability in his storm-gray eyes that she'd never seen before. "I know I'm not what you deserve," he continued. "I'm a criminal, Emma. I've killed people. My money comes from illegal activities. The life I can offer you is dangerous and complicated and exists in moral gray areas that would make most people uncomfortable." "Are you finished?" Emma asked, her heart racing. "Finished? Listing all the reasons I should run away from you?" She moved closer, her hands coming up to frame his face. "Because I have a list of reasons I'm staying. Want to hear them?" Dante's expression shifted, hope warring with disbelief. "I'm listening." "You rescued 63 children when the system failed them. You put your life at risk today to save a woman you'd never met because her daughter needed her. You've been patient and gentle with Mia even when she was terrified of you. You trusted me enough to let me into this world despite having every reason not to." Emma's voice strengthened. "You're brilliant and complicated and yes, dangerous, but you're also the most honorable man I've ever met. You live by a code that actually means something. And you make me feel like I matter, like the person I am, not who I'm supposed to be, is exactly who you want." "Emma, I'm falling in love with you too," she said, the words spilling out in a rush. "And I know that's crazy. I've known you for less than a month. You're a criminal, I'm a teacher. We have nothing in common except a mutual commitment to protecting children. But I can't imagine going back to my old life now. Can't imagine not being here, not being part of this, not being with you." Dante's hands came up to cover hers where they rested against his face. "You understand what you're signing up for? This isn't temporary. If you choose this, choose me, you're choosing a life that exists outside normal society. A life where danger is real, where the law isn't always on our side, where the work never really ends." "I understand." Emma met his gaze directly. "And I'm choosing it anyway. Choosing you. Choosing this family we're building. Choosing to be someone who fights for children instead of just teaching them within a broken system. Dante kissed her then, and it wasn't gentle or tentative like their first kiss. This was desperate, hungry, 3 weeks of denied want and careful distance finally breaking free. Emma pressed closer, her fingers tangling in his hair, kissing him back with everything she'd been holding back. When they finally separated, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. I can't promise you safety. Can't promise you normal. Can't even promise you legal. I don't want those things anymore. Emma's smile was fierce. I want this. This work, this purpose, this complicated, dangerous, beautiful life we're building. I want you. Then you have me. Dante's voice was rough with emotion. All of me. Everything I am, everything I have. It's yours if you want it. I want it, Emma whispered. I want all of it. They stood there in the library, wrapped in each other while the mountain night pressed close around the safe house. Outside, security walked the perimeter. Upstairs, a mother held her rescued daughter. In the kitchen, Rosa was probably already planning breakfast for tomorrow. This was Emma's life now. Not the one she'd planned, not the safe path she'd always imagined. But it was real and it mattered and it was hers. 3 months later, Emma stood in the library watching Dante teach Mia how to properly hold a book in Italian, and felt a contentment she'd never experienced before. Sarah had decided to stay at the safe house while testifying against the trafficking ring, and the arrangement had evolved into something more permanent. She worked with Rosa now, helping care for the rotating group of rescued children who needed the safe house's protection. Mia was thriving, nightmares almost gone, smile constant, the trauma healing slowly but steadily. And Emma had found her purpose. She'd officially become the safe house's education coordinator, developing curricula for traumatized children, hiring therapists and tutors, creating a program that would help rescued children heal and eventually reintegrate into normal life. But more than that, she'd found home. In Dante's arms at night, in the family they were building, in the dangerous, complicated, absolutely necessary work they did together. Mama, look. Mia called, running over with a book. Mr. Dante says this story is about a girl who's brave like me. Emma took the book, smiling at the little girl who'd changed everything. Should we read it together? Yes. And Mr. Dante too. Mia grabbed Dante's hand, tugging him toward the couch. You have to do the voices. Dante's expression softened in that way it only did around children, and he let himself be pulled along. Emma followed, settling on the couch with Mia between them, feeling Dante's arm come around her shoulders. This was family. Chosen, fought for, built from trauma and protection and love that grew in the spaces between legal and illegal, right and wrong, safe and dangerous. And Emma wouldn't change a single thing. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.